listener. We can see your emails.
Hello.
Hi, hi, Ivan, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. I'm battling to start my video, and I just got able to start video camera.
See if I can.
So I'm not sure if I am.
Just check bottom left next to the mute button.
Yeah, so it says start video, and then it just says integrated camera, and that's what is ticked, but it says it fails to start.
I've just sent
my video. Let me see. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's.
Is it working?
No, it still gives me the notification that failed to start video camera. Please select another video camera in settings. I start my video again from what you've sent me. No.
Do you mind going out and coming back in again?
Okay, cool.
Maybe at the beginning it will probably ask you.
Okay, cool. Okay.
Okay.
Hi, Simone. I didn't even say hi. I got on and I was on mute and my video was paused. How are you doing?
I'm good, and you?
I'm great, thank you.
I was just saying that you could see your emails.
Oh yeah. Let me just share the right screen.
T-minus how many days until? Guys, I'm so confused. What day is it today? Today is the 24th.
Tuesday.
It's August.
Yeah, it's still the same. I'm going to see if I can try to get my IT guy because it still does not allow me to do the video.
Oh, is it?
Video? No. Hey, John. Cool, man. Are you still in the building? Yikes. Okay, maybe you might know. Yeah, I'm on a Zoom call and I'm battling to use my video. And it's starting in about 5 minutes. Is there some trick that you know or something that I might, because when I click on start video, where it doesn't allow me, it just gives me the option of integrated webcam. You say select camera integrated webcam, but that's all that I can see and it doesn't allow me to project.
Just trying to see.
Okay, yeah, that's quite. And I've even tried to log off and on, but I'm battling with that. Yeah. No, that's fine. I mean, I wonder if it might be.
Client or the web?
Mm-hmm.
Are you using the desktop client or the web browser?
Well, I just clicked on the invite that was given to me, which I think is the web browser.
Okay. Let's have a quick squiz. Using the desktop browser.
Well, you know what?
You know what, Ivan? It might be easy if you download the app on your phone. What phone do you have? An iPhone?
Yeah.
Yeah. So try and download the Zoom app on your cell phone. Then it might be easy because sometimes the web browser does do funny things because because I've got the app on my laptop and my phone.
Yeah, okay, maybe. So if I, okay, let me just put in the meeting ID in the meantime. 10.
Let's see if I do it as well.
6, 6.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, John.
Okay, so they say if you go to start settings,
If
you click on the start button.
Okay, hold on. Start button.
And then settings.
You mean start in the video because
on your computer.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you type in SE on go press start SE, you should see a settings tab come up.
Okay. Yeah.
Click on personalization.
Huh. Where the heck do I find that? Okay, personalization, right?
Now there should be a taskbar. Taskbar. There, taskbar, it's at the bottom.
At the bottom. So I mean on this, oh yeah, got it.
Now there should, do you see a mic or a camera option on yours there?
I'm going down now. I see. So it's people, multiple display notification area. Actually not.
Okay, so you can't see one there. But if you go to the same place, start settings, and go on the top, you should see a back button.
Yeah.
Click back.
Yeah.
Then there should be privacy.
Privacy. Yeah, with location and camera. Okay. Yeah.
Is your camera
at the bottom? Yeah.
So if you go to, your camera is on.
Hello.
And then you should see there should be a button opposite. One of them might be Zoom. And you might have to just turn your camera on for Zoom. So choose which apps can access your camera. If you go down there, there should be a Zoom app there. And it might be off for your camera.
Hold on. I mean, I see everything else except Zoom.
Except Zoom.
Yeah, I mean, I see everything else from Skype.
And you go to allow apps to access your camera.
No. Well, I did put on the camera for all. Yeah, for all. I'm battling to see though.
Ivan, you're giving us Madala's a really bad name here. Come on, get your shit together.
No, tell. So I take it to your own. Yeah, I mean this is quite weird. I think maybe it's because I normally use Teams, but I still cannot see. I might have to get your camera on. I might just have to try to do it on my phone as suggested, because I mean it's got all options except for Zoom, which is quite bizarre.
Yeah, it is quite bizarre that it's not allowing it on, because that's pretty much the only thing. When you clicked on the Zoom meeting, did it say download anything, or did it just?
No, it just went straight. But you know what it just went straight into Zoom.
I would suggest that you need to download the Zoom app. That's probably what's causing your problem.
Yeah. Okay. Cool, John. Look, let me see what I can do in the meantime.
You're still at crest of the base, sorry.
Yeah, I'm still at the base.
I'll also have quickly a Festus come pop his head in by you now.
Okay, cool. Thanks, man.
Cool.
Okay. Cheers.
Yeah, cheers, bye.
Right, now let me try to do it.
Don't worry, technology is not everybody's friend. Trust me, even us, we get it wrong. Don't worry. That's why we all smiling.
No, it's just this video. I think I'm trying to remember what I've done before when I had my problem with Zoom camera. Maybe is if I can try to log on and put in their IDs. I think maybe that might work if memory serves me well. I'm trying to remember what I did last time, because now I didn't have to put in the webinar ID and participant, right? So I'm trying to think what would be, if I just go straight to Zoom then, okay, I'm going to try to do this. I'm going to go straight to Zoom on my browser and then try to put in and let's see if it might work. Okay, Zoom meeting.
So,
Yeah.
Raven, what I'm going to ask is, do you mind muting? Because what we'll do in the meantime, we'll just start with the introductions and stuff, so that we could just get people going and stuff. Okay, cool.
That's fine.
There you go. What did you do?
Hey, we see you, Ivan.
Hey, you're there. Now you just have to unmute.
No. Can you still see me?
There we go.
Hey, there we go.
Okay, cool. And that also was in. Hey.
Yeah, right on time.
Perfect.
That was all good. Cool. So welcome everybody to our second installment of Open Chats with Open Chair. So for those of you who are joining us for the first time, the Open Chair is a platform where we allow more senior females in the industry, the experienced ladies, not old senile people, none of that. But we get senior ladies in the industry to have FaceTime with younger, upcoming females in the industry and basically have a Q&A of mentorship where they get to know each other, they get to understand the industry, the things that they've gone through, what other advice they can get, etc. However, for this installment of Open Chair, we've decided to switch it up a bit to allow for FaceTime with between two mentors of the industry where they have a Q&A with each other and we can actually unpack and understand, the different, their different involvements with the industry, etc., and get to know more. And for the first time, we've decided to open up our Lionesses Den to two remarkable men who have done such amazing things in our industry. And giving them time to be able to unpack specifically the role of women in our diverse industry. So it's not about men speaking on behalf of women or men taking up a women's space. This is more about men showing up for women. So I will hand over to Suhana, who is gonna introduce the two famous lads who have paved the way for many of us, especially people of color, to be able to do things like this and be able to take the industry forward, being diverse, take it away, Suhana.
Okay, cool. I'm sorry, you're going to hear my pressure cooker in the background. I'm such a good Indian girl, I'm cooking. But the last time I was in the company of Ivan and Ahmed, we were at an event for Destiny Connect, and you had to bring someone in your life that mentored you. And so I took Ahmed, and there was a young strategist there, and he brought Ivan along. And it was such a great evening because it was these two generations, although I'm not that far away from you guys, where we just sat there in awe listening to the two of you speak. And I think you both referred to yourself as Madalas in that conversation. So don't blame us for addressing you as Madalas. And you ended the evening by saying to us that our work on transformation and growing the creative industry and especially mentorship is just beginning, whereas you guys have been doing it. And so I remember that conversation, and I thought it would be great for the two of you to partake in this. So both Ahmed and Ivan are well respected professionals in the industry who have served for many, many years. Someone on Twitter said today You'd have to look hard to find anyone smarter, kinder, and more woke than these two. I thought that was a perfect compliment. Ahmed hails from Polokwane. We almost lost him to architecture, but he found advertising because of his love for words. He has worked on some iconic brands like Nando's, Mini, First for Women Insurance, Channel O, Sasol, Tiger Brands, and South African Tourism. He's the former founder of Black River FC that has created some of the country's most memorable work. He's won a lot of awards, but has never kept a record of what he's won because he has never looked at awards as a validation of success. Instead, he's dedicated his 25-year career to creating surprising, evocative, and contagious work by building diverse, empowered, and happy creative cultures. In 2016, he was recognized as the most admired creative boss in South Africa. And he's a dear friend and a mentor to me, someone who empowered me as a young female creative and created a space for me to shine. Ivan is the CEO of Kantar Insight Division South Africa. He's a seasoned marketing practitioner specializing in data analysis to identify marketing insights and develop actionable marketing and communication strategies that impact the bottom line. He began his formal career at British American Tobacco. His introduction to consulting came through Added Value, the global marketing consultancy, and working with a list of blue chip companies. He has held leadership roles which include sorry guys, bad timing, which includes strategy director, managing director, and CEO at institutions like Global, Yellowwood Future Architects, and TBWA. He later founded the Marketing Insights and Strategic Consultancy Co-Currency. Ivan is the ex-chairperson of the jury for the Apex Effective. A whole lot of acronyms are going to follow for Apex, ex-chairperson of BCSA, and ex-vice chairperson of the ACA. And he has served on judging panels of other industry awards, including the Loeries, Bookmarks, and Marketing Achievement Awards. And a favorite quote by him is, "You can never know the full story. Everything is connected, including the two statements." So that's the introductions. We're going to have, I think it was 40 minutes of interview and then about 10 minutes of questions at the end. So to the audience members, please put your questions in the Q&A and we'll get to them towards the end. Now over to you, Ahmed and Ivan.
Cool, thanks, Suhana. I'm going to leverage my privilege as an elder. I'm older than Ahmed. And I told him I'll pose the first question, leveraging my eldership. Right? Okay, Ahmed.
The elders always go first. I respect that. I may look older than you, Ivan, I've been told, but out of respect, I think you should go first. I prefer it that way. Thank you, sir.
Cool, man. Yeah, it's not every time that you spend some time with somebody that you absolutely admire, and it's a rock star. So I'm quite chuffed, to be chatting with you. And I thought, Ahmed, maybe we'll start it from a personal perspective and going straight to the point. In terms of you personally, on a rate of 1 to 10, how conscious are you about your unconscious bias?
It's a great way to start this entire conversation, and something I've been thinking a lot about since. I must be honest, I was nervous about, being here right now because I'm nervous for a couple of reasons. The one is, have I done enough? And the second is, I don't want to say anything wrong. And that comes to your point about being conscious and unconscious bias. I think on a scale of 1 to 10, I think I'm not as conscious as I should be. I'm below 5, I think. And I think that's really the journey, isn't it? That's the journey that us men need to embark on becoming more conscious of our biases or unconscious biases. We are men. We have grown up with them. We live with them. And I think it's important for us to acknowledge that and be conscious of it, because there's no progress and no progression if we can't be more empathetic. And I'm not just saying that to kind of be humble about it. I think it's the truth. I think no matter how positively you may be seen in a certain light, it doesn't exclude us from making some really gross mistakes when it comes to women and the treatment of women. And I've always dedicated, I guess, most of my career to the empowerment of Black creatives. and not consciously female creatives.
Yeah.
So I think that's work for me. That's work for me to do. It's something that I am starting to become more conscious of, and I believe there's a lot more work to be done there. So yeah, I think on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm below 5, but I think that's a good thing to acknowledge, because there can't be any growth if we're any higher than that. I don't know what you feel, Ivan. How conscious are you? We do come from a slightly older generation, which in itself, I believe, is fraught with a lot of negativity in the way that we conditioned and grew up as men in this world.
Yeah. Well, Ahmed, I mean, like you are right. I mean, once you think you are woke and you know it all, and that's a problem. So you start off with acknowledging that you might actually be worse than you think. But as a follow-up question to that, just that acknowledgement in itself, I mean, is significant. What has shaped that? I mean, is anything in your upbringing that has shaped you, even in terms of being conscious about things that might be blind spots to you? Anything to do with your upbringing at all?
Yeah, I mean, like that was my question to you, by the way, Ivan. So you stole my only question. But I grew up, I think often what we do is we look back at our upbringing and the conditioning, the nature nurture thing, and I think you got to go back, and I obviously go back to my mom, my mother being a pivotal figure not only in my life and my career, but my upbringing and as a human being and as a man. And I learned lessons early on in terms of the power and the determination of women around me, my mother being that person. And I go back to times when, she entered the world of marriage and life, from a very patriarchal point of view, where she was the wife that came in. She was proposed to by my dad. They hardly knew each other. It wasn't an arranged marriage, but it was old school. And she entered an environment and a family, my father's family, and where you expected to be quite subservient to the culture and tradition of that family. And I found my woman from a young age, my mom, I found her to be a really strong human being individual, a powerful individual in that she challenged a lot of the things that were expected of her. She was a housewife. My dad got sick, got cancer, and she had to assume the role of breadwinner in the house, and the things that she did, for my dad and for the family. And I saw something immediately in that when you, in hindsight, see as lessons, and you see that women are more capable, I believe, in so many areas of life, in almost every area of life. And there's a kind of commitment and determination and a strength and inner strength that men don't have. So I think I was largely influenced by that. And I'll fast forward quickly because I'm taking too much time in answering my questions. I'll fast forward to, being aware of this or being conscious of these things is when you're in the presence of lots of women. And I've always found that I'm lucky in that I've got two sisters and a mom, and so my dad and I, my late dad and I, were dominated by women in our presence. And I got into advertising, and at Black River in particular, we had, I think it was 85, 86% women at the agency. We were surrounded by women, led by an MD who was female. And that helps you conscientize yourself and learn the errors of your ways just by being present. And I think that's a really great learning ground. So I'm going to throw it over to you, Ivan. I want to know your influence growing up to be the man that you are, the human that you are. How influenced were you by female influence in your life?
It's incredible. It's like a parallel universe to what you've just explained. I mean, it's really, really incredible. I mean, it has been my own mother, and I came from a single parent household, raised by my mother, who is one of the toughest, one of the most resourceful, one of the strictest, everything that you can imagine, with all the values. Like you, I mean, she really shaped me, even my interest and my passions about people behavior, curiosity, marketing. She was strong. I mean, like really, really tough and strong. So like you, and you also reference your sisters. My own sister as well. It's like they don't come tougher than that, physically and all otherwise, emotionally, intellectually. Amazing women who even in the past was quite involved in terms of Black consciousness. and saw her, and like you, it's weird. I live with 3 women now because I'm a father of daughters. So my life has been shaped by women and continues to be like that. So not by a stretch of imagination will I even want to say I'm woke because I took a personal conscious thing of appreciation of women and their power and their influence. It just happened, like you, that my background just ended up having to be influenced by women. Coming back to the core of today, like you, when you say in the work environment, women has been like that. It's exactly like me. If I have to look at my career, I have people that I admire that I continue to be mentors. There are as many women as there are men. And fortunately, maybe for me, because I chose marketing. Marketing by its nature is quite gender neutral to some sense in terms of people on both sides. But even within, when I was dabbling in advertising, the discipline I was following was straight, right? And in straight, unlike creative, if you look at strategies and all that, it's really a lot of, as many men and as female who are one. So things just fell into place from my side of being fortunate to be in situations where I can see the power of women. Maybe we'll touch on it later. Will I be saying exactly the same thing if I was an African female? Maybe not. And there's a conversation that maybe we'll touch on it. But yeah, me personally, it's got nothing to do with my wokeness or my smartness or anything like that, but it's got everything to do. I just happen to have been brought up and to be in a field that really is a bit more embracing than other fields. If I happen to be in engineering, will I be saying the same thing? Maybe not.
Or in advertising. So maybe that's a good statement.
True that.
No, I mean, I was looking at the statistic. This, I think it was a study done. You should be able to tell me this from Kantar, but there was a study done, I think, a year or 2 years ago, and they were talking about creative heads. 3% of creative heads in this country are female. It may have improved over the last 2 years. I don't think significantly.
No.
And I guess the question directed at me from the advertising industry, but that's where it doesn't make any sense, does it? That you've got an industry that's dominated by men, especially in the creative departments and in leadership. I always found that quite strange. I don't know what your views on that were. Why do you think we're here? What do we?
Well, it's funny. I was going to tell you because I've just said if you look at other disciplines in advertising, there are a lot of women in there. That I was going to put it to you to say like, answer up, creative. Answer up, you.
See what I did there?
You threw it back at me, but maybe I might be able to answer it from not being inside of it, because sometimes when you are inside of it, like you being really creative, and sometimes maybe you might not be seeing the proverbial who's from the trees. I genuinely wish I knew, Ahmed, and it has always been a fascination for me with regards to that, especially creativity and being in a creative lead. Because what creativity requires, as you know, it is an appreciation of somebody who can see interdependencies, have a broader view of life in terms of leadership. And I find women leaders to be like that anyway. With us, we are like, give me a nail, let me nail it. We are normally so directed. So here's an industry that is creative. Why it is not really making the most of what women have to it? It has always been a mystery to me. The only thing I can say to you is it's about privilege. And my thing about privilege is, why would we expect people who are privileged to give up that privilege? And that's the question we must ask ourselves. Like me as a man, right? And you hear most of the things we say, they apply to race as much as to gender. Yeah. Me as a man, what is my motivation if the system works for me to change? Expecting privileged people to give up the privilege, That's the question that sometimes maybe we are too optimistic to think me and you as a man, we are going just to say, oh, I've got privilege and I'm going to give it up. While there's no threat or danger to me. That's it. Maybe it's just because people, it's privilege. They enjoy it.
I think it's an important thing. I think you brought up several things because I was going to say, if you think back, you got to look at it historically and go, like, what has led to this point where there's lack of female leadership in advertising?
Yeah.
And it started with white male privilege to begin with, which is both race and, where it was held, power was held close to the chest. Also, the advertising industry back then, and maybe when I started, was the beginning of the end, so to speak, of a generation. I think Sohana put in one of her tweets of the mad men, where you needed to be bulgy and big and rude or what's the word? You needed to be a certain type of machismo to be able to be appreciated in leadership. And I think that's changed somewhat. But then you look at so that's my white male privilege, and if you look at it now, to some degree it's moved, which I don't believe it's moved enough, into being represented by black males also.
Yes.
First.
Yeah.
And perhaps that privilege is now the male privilege that is the legacy that was left behind, where we feel, the same kind of, not pressure, but the same kind of desire to hold on to power and not to open it up. So I think it's easy, and I've always banged on this drum about the racial inequalities of this country, but I think in the context of this discussion and the world that we're living in, I think there is a male privilege that still is very prevalent, where we don't want to open the doors, give the seats at the table, the well-deserved seats at the table, and it is our job to be able to do that. The same way I always felt that white males that came out of the history of this country needed to open doors for myself, or for you, or for Sohanas of the world, people of color, to open it up. I think it's now our responsibility. So the question is, how do we do more of that? And it comes to your first point about how conscious are you? So that the work has to be done by us. So I also find, sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit. I feel that, like, until now, the racial discussion has been led by black professionals, going like, we want transformation, we need transformation. But it shouldn't actually be led by black people. It should be led by white people who see the need for transformation, and they should be banging on the drums, which is something that penny dropped for me only recently. Similarly, I think women should have a right to the seat at the table, but also I think the work needs to be done by us as men to open that up, not for them to ask for it.
Ahmed, you've asked the question and the answer is spot on in terms of black guys who might have benefited in the industry from the transformation. It's exactly that now it's like, oh, well, it's working for me. When people are trying to recruit, they are recruiting as long as you are black. Well, it seems like they're recruiting the guys. Why should I change that? You see, it goes down every time to self-preservation. So this privilege of men, it works for me as a black guy. So why should I mess around with that privilege? You're absolutely right, even in terms of who should be leading the charge, just like with race. It is the privileged people who must lead it. Just like with race, it's black folks, it's white folks who should be doing it. You're absolutely right. It's the men folk who must be opening it up. You see, the issue, privilege is such an important topic, Ahmed, because, and I feel strongly about it. I just want to make a point about privilege. Privilege is a fact, right? Privilege is a fact.
Yeah.
And privilege, it doesn't matter whether that privilege is based on what you have done or not. It's still privilege. You are privileged. It's not a judgment.
Yeah.
The judgment comes when you deny the privilege.
100%. There's acknowledgement. Acknowledgement is the beginning of the journey. I think we've got to be able to do that. But I think yeah, opening those doors is the second step after acknowledgement. But I mean, it's quite loose and general, but like we have to be better as men, not just in careers, but just outside it also. We need to be better. But I find that it becomes very philosophical, right? And you don't move forward when you base on philosophy, and the philosophy is do it because it is the right thing to do. There's no debate and discussion around it. So I think the racial transformation, the gender inclusion, all of those things, sexuality, racial, all of the inclusivity, everybody will agree that it's the right thing to do. The question is, how do you do it? And for me, I've only, in my experience, only found, and I speak more on the racial side, I guess even from a gender point of view, is to consciously give the leg up.
Yeah.
You have to do it. That your role as a man is to be conscious of what you're doing, not be apologetic about it, because sometimes we have to we feel like we need to justify the reasons we're doing the right thing, apart from the fact that it's the right thing. The business imperative's always been there. From a racial point of view, we know this. 80%, 90% of the population we know is black, right? So that's obvious. From a business point of view, it makes sense. From a gender point of view, it makes sense too. 18 million female consumers, 60%, I think, of primary. So they are primary consumers. So it's there. The discussion is there. The only way you move practically forward is as businesses to be intentional about it, to be deliberate about it, and to be, this is the last point, is to be public about it. So it's to say that we would like our female staff complement to move from 30% to 50% in X amount of time period. We want female leadership at our board level from this percent to that percent, and publicly put it out there. This is both gender and race. And in the absence of that, nobody holds us accountable for it. So everyone will be sitting in forums like this, Ivan. And men, if you put any man in a forum like this, not going to deny what we're saying. I think what I'm saying, as a comment, not a question, is to throw it out at business leaders and CEOs to say, go public with your racial targets and your inclusivity targets that include gender, fix your gender pay gap and make it public so that your own people keep you responsible and honest, and the public at large keeps you honest. And I think that's the only way you see a radical shift forward for doing what I said in the beginning, the right thing.
Fully agree. And I think me and you are old enough, and it's not been about being cynical, not to rely on the goodness of people and not to rely on people doing something because it's the right thing to do, right?
Absolutely.
The only thing to get people to do stuff is to impact them directly. What you are suggesting about like making it open and all that and being KPAs and KPIs of those leaders up until it hits the pockets of people. If you make it public to say we'll be held accountable to do for this, and if you do not deliver on it, it's going to hit you personally, your pocket. You see, we privilege for somebody to give up the privilege for others. Let's be honest. It takes a special kind of person, right? Or it takes a special moment, like maybe a spiritual awakening. The reality, though, is we cannot rely on that special, because special means it cannot be done on scale. On scale, as human beings, you have to use the stick. There's no other way. And I like what you're saying to say, and there has been a bit of a movement that I've picked up in terms of young folks in this country in advertising to say, we are going to raise up company by company to say, let's see your excos, let's see your boards. I hope it continues, because up until it does, we will not see that change happening. You see, which leads me to a rather sensitive issue, Ahmed, about, and as I said, it can talk as much as to race and about the gender. When you are given an opportunity to be in a position of change, another female, or another black person, why can't you feel that it is your moral obligation, as you said, to lift others up? My theory is based on this principle. For you to make a change with others, you need two things. You need the power and you need the will. Remember, there are some people who might be having the title, but they don't have either or both. And only having one, even if you have the will, but you don't have the power, the mandate of the board, doesn't matter, you won't be effective. If you have the power, but you do not have the will, you can be on social media, blah, 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 about Black Lives Matter and all that stuff. It means nothing. You genuinely need the two. If you're in that position must have the will and the power. Only then can you lift others up.
I'm interrupting you because the power in the world is important, but the question is, if you only have the will to empower women, to empower black, whatever it is, but you don't have the power,
yes,
it is also your moral obligation,
yes,
to fight for it, to be vocal about it. And I think as black people that sit on boards throughout my career, there is a point where we stop the fight. You know, throw our hands up in the air and go, they never change, they're never going to change. And that's quite selfish. Exactly. I'm not saying it's easy, I've been at those tables. But it is quite selfish because at the end of the day, like you're saying, the privilege allows us to give up the fight for everybody else, knowing that we are still secure. So,
dude, you know what?
Resistance, I just want to finish, Ivan. What I'm saying is, this is a challenge to men in power and black men in power to be able to fight harder for those causes at a board level. So having achieved that is a great thing, to get to a level where you have the power or the will or the position. But I'm urging black men and women to fight harder for the betterment of everybody else, because it's too easy for us to quit and to give up and say, I've tried.
Giving up is an option.
It isn't an option. And then the second thing, my second challenge is to people in organizations themselves to not look up and wait for people in power to make the change. Because I believe that we're in, like, you talk about Black Lives Matter. The world is sensitive to these injustices right now. And in fact, already in South Africa, you can see, I was about to post that on Twitter, the BLM movement in South Africa, the Black Careers Matter, those kind of things have all disappeared. They're gone. It is the obligation of people in each organization, in each agency, to not give that up. Now is the time. It's been 25 years, but there's no better time than now as a second chance to rise up and stand and say, no, we will not accept this. What are the figures? What is the gender pay gap? Exactly. What is the representation at the board level? Why is she not my creative director? Why has that person got the position? Everybody's responsibility. Our responsibility to fight at the top, but it's the responsibility of everyone on the ground. And I think, like you say, we have social activists that do it online and then forget about it. But I find it far more important in the building to send the emails to the MDs or the CEOs or the boards, and to do it by getting groups of people to say, we are unhappy with the status quo, let's change it. Only then will things change, in my opinion. Because the fight has always been left to a select few, either the seniors of the organizations or people who are vociferous. But the balance of the people, and that's where the mass thing comes in, is when if I'm a CEO of my company, I've got 150 people working there. If 30 people have a problem with it, it's a serious problem. If one person has it, what do we do as privileged people of power? That's a troublemaker. So I think things only get noticed when there's mess. So that's just my challenge out to CEOs and owners and boards, but my challenge also goes to the bottom to put pressure on those boards, because in the absence of that, nothing changes.
Spot on about firstly, we agree that giving up is not an option, regardless of what you say you have been through. That's not an option. And I couldn't agree with you far much more in terms of younger people who are not taking this, you are as guilty as the senior people who are not doing anything about it. You cannot point a finger at anyone. And let me explain something that maybe many people do not understand. There is something that I've always said about Black leaders in corporate, to say if you are a Black leader and you do not embrace aloneness, which is different from loneliness, and why I'm saying aloneness, you have to accept that you are going to be in no man's land.
Yeah.
Because here's what happens, right? The kind of fights that you might be having about the issue of transformation, including gender, that you might be having at an exco and at a board level, you still have corporate fiduciary duties to keep them confident.
Yeah.
But on one side, the people in the business might not, they don't have access to what you are going through, and they are just thinking either you are not doing anything or you are doing it too slowly. You as the leader, you must embrace that aloneness, because you cannot share it. On one side, you can understand the impatience of people. So that's why your self-consciousness comes in, to say, can I look at myself in the mirror to say, even if people might not be seeing what I'm trying to do, I know I'm okay with it. That's an important point.
Yeah, it's true.
To keep in mind, yeah?
Yeah, it's true. It's 100%. Yeah, and that gives you the permission to be
Exactly.
to be more vociferous about it. I mean, and also I think accountable. So I think as people in power, men in power, we can do a self-analysis. Self-conscious is one thing, but you can do a self-analysis also,
Yeah.
which keeps you honest to go, how many women have I hired? How many Black women have I promoted? How many women have I given opportunities that they were excluded from? How many women's lives have I affected in my organization?
Yeah.
Because you can do a self-analysis and your intention may be 100% correct, right? But you can actually see that you don't have the proof to back up your intentions, which gives you a really good point of departure to go, I need to do more. I haven't done anything. And it can happen quite quickly. It can happen with the next promotion. It can happen with the next appointee. It can happen with the next conversation that you're having. But that self-awareness for me is everything, because I think as men, we choose to ignore it, or we choose to say we've done enough. And I think it's because we're in power, it's our responsibility to change that narrative. But you cannot change the narrative of an organization if you haven't changed your own track record. And it starts on an individual basis. So yeah, again, lots of challenges out there. I mean, I look at stuff in my history, in my past, and I feel satisfied sometimes. And then I have a look again, a sobering thought to say, you could have done so much more. And I think that's the only way change happens. So,
I share this sentiment. If you had to ask me, can you live with yourself in terms of the career, how you've tried to do what you've tried to do? I said, yes. Can I live with myself to say I've done enough? Up until I go 6 feet down under, it will never be enough.
It won't.
There are people who have lost far much more than me, than I'll ever lose. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm saying being tired and what's the use is not an option. Then step out of the way. Let somebody else who's got the energy and the passion do that. And don't let the private school bills and the fancy house bills be the one that makes you not carry the fight. Don't be cheap. I tell my daughters that every time. To not ever allow yourself to be cheap. And sometimes, especially when you have made it a bit higher, we allow ourselves to be cheap, to take the crumbs of the table and to say and to enjoy like the proverbial, you are so different nonsense, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things we wanted to chat about was leadership between men and female.
Yeah.
The same thing like with female, if you had to say, you know, why aren't other women like you? You seem to be a bit far much more rational and a bit far much more non-emotional. That kind of rubbish and nonsense that we tolerate, where you do not realize the whole gender have just been disrespected.
Yeah, it's interesting you say things like, because I've heard that. I've heard people say that a lot, that this person is like, that's probably the thing that women hate most. So why are you so emotional? And the irony for me, right? I mean, it's deeply offensive when a
Yes.
man has to tell a woman, why are you being emotional about this?
Oh Lord, that's
And I know a woman who's despised that, hearing that, and deeply offended by it. The interesting thing for me is that the best male leaders that I know in creative have
yes.
been the most empathetic people, right?
Yeah.
A quality I believe women have way over men, empathy. So
True.
in essence, there's a strength that comes through the empathy in men that I rate highly, that women have given, most women, generally speaking.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
for me, it comes to I'm Suhana's on the call. Suhana's one of those creative leaders that I've had the privilege of seeing in the industry who has that empathy. I've had Vanessa, I've had Nicole, I've had Novanto, I've had Kani, that I've had exposure to as female leaders. And I wish I could take a lot of those qualities, different qualities from these people, and give some of the male leaders that I've had in my companies or in my environments and my experiences. So, I found, this is just a creative observation, I have found the woman in creative directorship positions generally far more effective and better cultural people with creative people.
Yeah.
I have found them more nurturing, more understanding, smarter in terms of creating better creative studios, because women generally seem to care more about that person than about anything else. And I find that as a director, as a creative director, as a leader, and especially in our industry where very little care is given, I found women do that much better. And I think the product that comes out of it is better. So I don't understand why more agencies don't do that. It baffles me.
I mean, I agree with you. As you know, I have dabbled in advertising before, and with my exposure of female creative, I couldn't agree with you more. They are, and there's the less of the, the ego, arrogance. The sign shines through. I mean, the issue in terms of creative and female stuff and all that stuff. I find female creative have less of that ridiculous rock star stuff that creative generally have. And I must say here as well, and the bill will be in the post, you as well, as you are that kind of guy as well. You've never, I mean, in the industry, you are not known as, here's the rock star, I'm here, and with all the awards and all the stuff, but there's a genuine empathy, simple, chilled out, empathetic vibe that you have as a man. And you are right, naturally I think it comes like that with women. And the dog eat dog that normally I have seen in creative things about people trying to climb on each other. I think you're absolutely right. I think with female creatives, it's a combination of that brilliance plus the empathy and a bit of just chill, just chill.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just sum it up, and I'll just tell you some of the best male creative directors that I've worked with.
Yeah,
have been like my female creative directors. That's the truth. That's the truth. I've worked with really great guys, men, but the reason I rate them so highly is because their manner has been very much like the female creative directors I've had the honor of working with. But I mean, just on your point, thank you for the kind words. But having said that, I still like the ego thing is still there, and maybe it's not a man-woman.
Everybody's got an ego, man.
Yeah, it's amazing. No, but what I'm saying is, I'm just acknowledging. I'm thinking. I'm going like, yeah, no. I like to. I have to consciously tell myself, don't allow that to get to your head. Like, do not allow this thing, because we enjoy it so much. We enjoy it so much. The fame, the accolades, the pedestal, the spotlight, and it's like it's not an easier thing to be able to enjoy the moment, but enjoy it in a way that acknowledges people beyond it. Sometimes our own egos say, fuck, I'm really good, man. I'm really, and I must be good if I could do this thing, you know? So it's an interesting thing to check yourself. Coming back to your point is that, like, as human beings, in any aspect of our lives, there has to be acknowledgement of these things that are beyond, that go a little deeper. And I think similarly, back to the conversation that we're having here, we have to take stock of ourselves. We have to be more critical of ourselves as men for us to move forward and for us to impact change with people around us. I mean, so many times I'll be unconscious of those things. I'm unconscious that I've addressed the guy in the room and not the woman in the room. And I justify it by going, no, I'm having a creative conversation. But the strategist or the account manager who's female, who's sitting right next to it, I've just completely ignored them. And it's exhausting, but you have to do it. You have to be conscious of it. And that's the only way we can move forward. I mean, there's a lot of work. There's a lot of work to be done there.
I'll give you an example. I'll give you a quick example about what you just said about your own biases, right? About 2 weeks or so ago, I wanted to post a picture of Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren, right? So I wanted to tweet the pic because I've got this morbid fascination with Donald Trump. So I wanted to tweet that pic to say, if these two were it, they would make Donald Trump cry like a little girl.
Yeah.
The irony, I mean, listen to the irony. I'm admiring these two, but what do I say? Donald Trump will cry like a little girl.
Yeah.
I had to be conscious of that and change it to say, cry like a little bully that he is. But the little girl thing came immediately in my mind, and I had to think to say, like, is that the kind of language that your daughters would like to hear of you, saying someone like Donald Trump, like being weak, comparing them to a little girl?
It's interesting.
It's every day you have to be conscious of even the smallest things.
Ivan, you mentioned something very interesting, right? I've got a daughter, she's 12 years old.
Yeah.
She's 13. Well, she's lucky she's not watching.
Make up your mind, is she 12 or 13?
She's 13. I'm looking around to see if she heard me make a mistake because I'll be in trouble. But it's an interesting thing that happens because at a very impressionable age that she's in, discovering herself, I am super conscious in every conversation I have with my daughter Taskin to make sure that she grows up to be a powerful woman that can stand for herself. So I'm constantly having these it's in my mind consciously when I'm with her. I don't lose track of it. To get her to understand the power of being a power of self, and not allowing, like, everything from the school playground, not allowing men to dominate, because that's what happens in the playgrounds, right? Yeah. You fight like a girl, you run like a girl, you're a sissy, all those things. And I'm trying to educate her now to find the power of self. So what my point is, I'm super conscious when it comes to my daughter. And then when I get to work, or I'm in a work environment, it's amazing how the guard just drops. Now imagine if we were that conscious in our professional lives, how much more impact we'll make. And by the way, the impact is not just on women. I think this entire talk is that impact that we have amongst our brothers, amongst men, because that's where the shit really happens. That's where that's where all the demeaning things are spoken about. The unconscious things, the conscious biases towards women actually happens. And we know this is the discussion that men can only be better when we are better amongst ourselves.
Calling it out, yeah.
Calling it out, and it's hard, eh? I'll be honest with you.
It's not easy.
I find it extremely difficult, both on the racial point of view and on the gender point of view. I find it extremely difficult in certain circles to call it out. So
well, especially
the ladies are about to call us to order here, I think.
Yeah, okay. Last is like, especially, I mean, you are with your boys and the mood is great and all that stuff, and somebody says something so inappropriate. Are you going to be that guy? He said, like, hold on, boys. Let's just think about what you just said. It takes lots of courage to do that because you don't want to kill the vibe, right? Hey, everything's going. It's like, come on. It's just a joke. Not just a joke. Anyways, it's Q&A time.
Yeah.
So I think that question, that statement actually leads us to our first question, which actually would encourage you to unpack this. So from Anon, we've seen CEOs address gender inclusion and equality in the media and internal meetings, only to see them employ men in high position in the same month. Nobody holds them accountable. What's your take as industry leaders on calling your male peers out in public?
I think I spoke about it earlier, just if I can quickly comment, and I'll try and be brief. I spoke about making those figures public. And so that's the only way an agency or a company can be held accountable. Yeah. Is that if there is a will, like Ivan is saying at the top, is to make that will public so that everyone in the organization and in the industry can hold those people accountable. So when you do say, we're looking to employ, this is our mission, and then you employ a male, in that it actually keeps you honest because you've made it public. That's the biggest problem. Yeah, it's like, and I've tried to quit smoking. The only time I've had some success at it is when I've told everyone I've quit smoking, because you're too embarrassed to pick up a smoke. But when you keep it to yourself, you can disguise it. That's the one thing. The other thing I just want to say is that it is our responsibility to hold them accountable. But you know what happens, Simone? We look like the people who are always the dissenting voice. Like, I know it's happened to me. Oh, he's going to talk about transformation again. It has no effect. It has very little effect because they just dismiss you. Where the people in that organization, and this is the challenge I throw out there, is the people, Anon and the rest of the people, need to make it public within that organization and ask the question, why, when you said this, is that person being employed? And I think the voice needs to come from within. I really think people are not doing that enough. And I understand the reasons. Career limiting move, prospects, you're limiting your growth. Are you going to get fired? Are you going to get discriminated against? All those things. But you find unity in numbers. You find strength in numbers, and I think that's what people need to do.
Just to add on it quite quickly, I couldn't agree more, and it goes back to the point about people taking responsibility of raising their voice. There are a lot of people that I mentor, and sometimes they'll say, oh, it's easy for you to talk about transformation. You've got the courage to do that because you are a CEO. And I always remind them, I'm a CEO because I had courage. I was a cigarette rep one time and working for a company. And I remember saying staff, being a junior rep, driving a station wagon, having some smokes in the back there. And I used to say stuff that the older folks would tell me, and the office was in Joburg, and I was from Pretoria, and they used to say, in Pretoria, you're gonna get yourself fired with your big mouth. So what I'm saying is you can never absolutely say, let's wait until I'm in a position to be vocal and to be courageous. Leadership is not a title. Leadership is an attitude and a belief. And it's easy to point fingers at somebody. You must ask yourself, what are you willing to do? How much does that mean to you? And what are you willing to give up?
Great. So the next question comes from Sharita Daya, and it says, women need male allyship in the workplace. How can men use their privilege non-optically to create a more inclusive environment and to create more space for more female leaders?
You know, the allyship thing, I think, is a critical point. If I come back to the Black Lives Movement at the moment, I think that having white allyship for that is actually far more effective. That's the point I was making earlier. So I think when white people in this country and in our industry fight as vociferously and as determinedly as Black professionals do for that cause, it has far-reaching possibilities, as opposed to the other way around. Similarly, when it comes to gender, men need to make themselves heard for the cause, for the female cause. That means, it comes back to what Ivan was saying, is it means it comes at a cost. It means it comes at some expense. So what are you willing to give up for that? And not many people are willing to give up anything for it. But I think allyship is critical now, and I believe that even if it's verbal or through social media or through actions, standing up in a space to be able to do that, I think is critical now. And it's amazing because people all have the right sense of what is right and what is wrong. And they often, when one person stands up and says the right thing in defense of or assisting someone, 5 other people stand up and say, I agree with you, whatever. So I just think that you'll never be alone. When it comes to the female cause, when it comes to the racial cause, any just cause, just stand up and be an ally and be genuinely an ally to those people, whether they're female, whether it's a sexual orientation thing or it's a racial thing. Stand up, because I guarantee you there are 10 people behind you waiting for one person to stand up. That allyship needs to be public, it needs to be loud, and it needs to be proud. It really needs to. Any more questions?
Cool. There are tons of questions. I'm just trying to get the nice ones. I mean, they're all very strong.
What do you feel about women opposing or suppressing other women?
Yeah, you saw that one, hey? I mean, if you want to, you can answer that one.
I don't know if we qualified to answer that one.
As on that is, again, it's like we are not a homogeneous group. As we are not a homogeneous group as Black folks, women are not a homogeneous group. Do not think all women are for the cause and the fight and be supportive. That's thinking all women are just one homogeneous group. You are not. They are selfish, self-centered women. As much as there will be about Black people who said it's about me and all that, and I want to be the only woman. Just like Black folks want to be, I want to be the only guy in the country club. There are women who are like that. I enjoy being the only one.
But where do you think that comes from? You know, like, I mean, if you say there are women that enjoy being the only one, like what kind of would push a woman to do that?
Simple.
Just
simple. It's self-preservation. It's just like being, it's simple. Just like with a guy, you get being told, you are so different. You are so different. I wish your folks were like this, as I said earlier on. Is this self-importance that people play you and they know that? And people know who to play, right? There are some women that men knows they cannot tell that rubbish to. There are some Black people that people know they cannot tell that rubbish to. So you must ask yourself, when you are being told that, what is it about you that people think you are that type of woman? That's a question to you, who you said, why is everybody comfortable with you being the only woman? You must ask yourself that question.
It's just an ego thing. I think it's a human trait and human condition.
Yeah.
So
but
for
isn't
me,
it also, but sorry, isn't it? It's actually it's a very strong question, and I think it's something for us to actually worth unpacking, because I do think that, and bringing it back to what we are talking about today, is that yes, it's this thing about territory. For example, me, I'm a woman. I've worked my way up to be where I am today, and therefore, if I'm the only person in this position, I'll try my best to keep that territory because I've made my way up there, right? So. But is it because of territory, or is it because that the reason why I'm going to work so hard to maintain this position is because I have to fight so many men to be able to get to this position, and therefore I need to be able to sit and hold as long as I can, you know, and therefore maybe, not that I'm actually making excuses for these women, but maybe it's a question of the reason why if another woman comes into my territory, you know, it's taking a part away from, oh, I don't want to let go or relinquish what I've worked so hard to uphold, so that I can look and so that I can represent women to look like we're the stronger people within the setting. That's what I'm just trying to understand, like,
now,
from your perspective.
Just selfishness. That's all it is.
I don't know. I feel the same way. I just feel like
you're just it's an ego trip and being self-centered. We don't need to get philosophical about it.
Because I think men do the same thing.
Yes, we do exactly the same thing. Being the only one is this oneness nonsense that people are obsessed with. And the more you want to be the only one, the more is a reflection on you of how weak you are, that you need to be the only one to rise up.
Okay, guys, I'm really sorry, but I've just got a message that we do have to wrap it today. We can't go over because call. But I really want to say that it was so refreshing not to have to talk about it ourselves as women, because we always get asked to speak about, I think every panel I get invited to is a panel about transformation. So it was refreshing to sit back, not in a disempowered way, but in a curious way, to actually hear what comes from men and what you were thinking about. And we need more of these. We need more men speaking up, more men having the conversation, not on behalf of us, but in order to support and show up for us. So thank you for your time. Investment is one of the key parts of transformation. So thank you for investing in your time in this. And we'll try to get Pritesh to give us more time next time. This was not enough.
Cool.
Thanks for having us, guys. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much. And thank you
Cheers,
everybody for
everybody.
your questions as well. Sorry we couldn't get to all of them, but we've seen them.
Cool. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.